Alrighty, it is Saturday, June 26th, and we are now live with Get to Know a Music Person. And I'm Stephen Hartman, and today I'm joined with Marshall Tindall, who I know through the Battle of a Big Band. He teaches in Gwyn, which isn't, right? No, where do you teach these days? You used to. Where do you teach now then? I messed up. Okay. Okay. I gotcha. Sorry, let's restart that. Hi, I'm Stephen Hartman. This is Marshall Tindall. He teaches He's at the big end. Wow, I really... I mean, I need to drink coffee. I mean, this is 10 o'clock in the morning, and I sometimes forget that... Oh, I need to have sound on for you. Now I have sound. So let's do this again. Hey, nobody knows now because you didn't have to tell me. So, again... Wow, this is a disaster. Hey, it's Saturday, June 27th, and I'm Stephen Hartman, and I'm joined with Marshall Tindall, who
Hello.
I know from the Battle River Big Band, and he is a teacher in Wetaskiwin and sometimes Millet. I messed up. If you were listening a little earlier, I said, I may have said Gwyn. I'm sorry.
I used to teach there,
Yeah,
so it's okay.
I'm so sorry.
You weren't wrong. It was just the timing's off.
Yeah, that's fine. Rob, can you hear him now? Are you good? I think he said I can't hear you, but I fixed it. I think I fixed it. I don't know. Rob's in chat though, so he'll probably be harassing you.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you totally. It's just
Okay, good.
and it's on stream, so I think we're good now. I think.
All right.
Well, I'll just keep going. So anyway, and also we did some jamming last summer too with Dan Christensen, who's been on, and Eric Olson, who's been on. So it's kind of cool. This circle's going to be going around like with people I'm interviewing. I get to know people. So there we go. Yeah, we can hear you. So Marshall, we're going to be talking to Marshall today about kind of who he is and get to know him a bit. And I mean, he's a band teacher, so I always like that perspective to get to know some stuff about that. And yeah, you're a woodwinder in the big band. You mainly just tenor sax though, right?
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm trained on, the saxophone.
Okay.
Clarinet I play sort of, and flute I'm bad at the flute, but I try.
You try.
Yeah.
It's like
20 years of trying, I'm still bad at it. It's just.
Well, and I mean, we're going to be looking at a video a little later that you're playing a whole bunch of things. That's what band teachers do, right?
But
you guys
the flute's very quiet, and that's why.
It's like just the volume. We're just like, no, I don't.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I could never play the flute. I tried. That was like, you're trying all your band instrument flute. I'm like, no, I can't do it.
Yeah,
I played sax. So saxophone was fine. It's fine.
Yeah, the saxophone's easy. Everybody saxophone's easy.
But it can sound so bad.
Oh yeah. But it's easy to make a sound.
And like destroy people in that at the same time with that sound.
Mm-hmm.
So what instruments would you say you play? Like tenor sax is what you're trained on?
Well, I play the saxophone, and all the fingers are the same, so I can play any saxophone.
Yeah.
I have a lot of guitars, but I wouldn't call myself a guitar player. My wife would go, "Hey, what's wrong with you?" But because I play the guitar at home all the time. I'm more like a hobby guitarist. I can play the blues a little bit, and I can play some folk songs.
Okay.
If you give me a tab, I can kind of follow along, but I'm not a guitarist by any stretch of the imagination. I would never call myself that, but I like to play the guitar.
Fair enough.
I'm okay. I've sat in with you guys, and I've managed to flood my way through as you heard, and I think I do okay, but I'm not advertising myself as a guitar player. Yeah, more, I can sing a song and play at the same time, and that's kind of fun, and I like it. I play the recorder a lot, actually. I can play the recorder fairly well. It's very similar to the fingerings of the saxophone, though, so it's not a big stretch.
Well, what recorder do you play? Like what style? German?
Yeah, well, the solo literature is mainly on the alto recorder.
Okay.
So I play the alto more than my soprano. The soprano is the one everybody knows from school, and I have a soprano. But once you start going into more of, hey, here's a piece written for the recorder, a lot of it is alto recorder, unless you're playing in a quartet.
Right.
And most people enjoy the sound of an alto recorder more than the soprano because it's a little lower and the higher range isn't quite as high.
Painful? Like it's
a little more mellow.
Because I did a recent recorder solo on one of my videos, and I was like, like playing it, I'm like, this hurts my ears, and it's a cheap plastic one, but it's still.
Yeah, no, I mean the soprano recorder can sound really good, but like the saxophone, it can sound pretty bad if you're not really focusing the tone and doing everything you're
Right.
supposed to. Yeah.
Well, I mean, everything I remember in school, because I played I ended up being more baritone saxophone than anything, but it
Hey,
was
me
like
too.
I liked it.
I
It's
think I was
like,
the biggest kid at the time. I'm like, "Yeah."
well, and I did bass for a bit, but it's like if you have, you're going through one reed forever, as long as you can get it to go, and
Honk.
if you have like lunchtime jazz band or something, you're like, it's gross. Sorry. So saxophone was your main one, and then recorder you do it.
I'd say I'm more
Guitar.
of a recorder. I can play the recorder better than I play the guitar. I like to play the guitar. What else? I mean, I can play the piano, but whoops. Oh,
Oops.
there's like,
Oops.
sorry.
Sorry.
There's a pop-up.
No, that was
Um,
me just adjusting something.
yeah, that's okay. I play the piano probably. I think I got to grade 5 or so, or maybe grade
Okay.
6, and I kind of transferred to band, and that's what happened. But I can play the piano. I play piano in music class for the little kids. We sing songs, and I can play the piano and stuff.
Okay.
So
Well, and that was
a passable piano player, but nothing to write home about.
I mean, that's because university probably just take your fundamental keyboarding skills.
Yeah.
Or whatever,
Well,
too, so it's
I
like,
did the test and I passed, so I was
Yeah.
like, okay.
it's like good, never again.
Yeah.
So now you mentioned like guitar. Is that your preferred instrument? Just because.
Well, that's my. It's mainly because you can play a song you hear on the radio and sing, and I can't do that with the saxophone.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
I like to play songs I hear in the saxophone, but it's just harder because you don't. It's like, hey, that song's neat. I'll play it on the saxophone. Well, it's not quite the same.
right.
I can play a little bit of bass too, but once again, it's like,
I mean, it's because the top 4 notes are the same as guitar.
Yeah.
So, top
Yeah.
or for strings. That's kind of how I feel about guitar too. It's like it's an instrument you can pick up, like if you know how to play it, and you can accompany yourself. So you can just, if you want to sing and be weird, then perfect.
you can.
Yeah. Well, sing and be good. We shouldn't say weird. I'm weird, but it's just how it works.
Say weird? What's wrong with weird? Come on.
I mean, I like playing drums. Like drums are a lot of fun, but it's just.
Yeah, and actually, I can play the band instruments, like the instruments in concert band too, like a junior high level. Like I could pick up an instrument and play it. But if you gave me a high school chart for the flute, I'd be like, no, because you go really high, and I don't do those notes anymore. Like probably when I took it in university, I maybe could have done it, but it's kind of a crash course in all the instruments. But teaching them, I can play them to that level. But I always say to the students, by the end of your time here, well, at least when I had grade 9s, I only have grade 8s now. I said, by the end of your time here, except maybe the saxophone, you should be able to play your instrument better than I can if I've done my job properly.
I mean, that makes
if
sense.
you're a flute player, you should be able to play better than I can by the end of grade 9. That's what I tell them anyway.
Well, and I think there's logic to that. Even when you are teaching, you don't necessarily have to be a master of the instrument as long as you can explain how it works. Because you may not. You're going to pick up, as a musician, you might pick up the one instrument you like better, or the one you've been trained in, and you have more time on that. Versus
I'm better at some of the instruments, but there's a few that.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So I think it's an important tool to be able to show people how to actually play something. And it's like, if you can explain it too, like some people can't explain anything. I don't know. It's like trying.
Well, that gets better at time too. I think if you look back at my teaching from 17 years ago, I'd be like, oh, geez, don't do that. What are you doing? I hope I'm better now than I was then.
So doing the whys versus just like don't do it. It's like, here's why you don't do it.
Yeah, and I think I'm more helpful and I know when to help, because when I was younger, I'd kind of push and never knew when to stop. So get kids upset when I should just let them be for a minute, that kind of thing.
Fair enough. So you teach mainly junior high then? Is that?
I did teach mainly junior high, but our school, was it 3 years ago? 2 or 3 years ago, changed to a K-8 school. So I'm about half and half now. I have elementary music classes, and then I had junior high band classes as well.
Okay.
So.
And which school is that? Because the sound wasn't working before.
Queenie, but Millet is also K-8 too.
Okay.
So I taught a couple elementary classes there too.
Okay. Yeah. And then you send them off to...
Wetaskiwin Composite High School, or if they're at Griffith Scott and Millet, a few of them go to Leduc, but I think
Okay.
most of them still go to Wetaskiwin. I could be wrong about that though. I don't actually know for sure.
Okay. And so we're gonna get into like the current situation soon. I just want to ask a bit more like how you got to where like the COVID situation. We always have to get into that these days, it seems. But how did you like? What's your upbringing, like your education when it comes to music?
Well, I think, let's see. Well, I'm from Lloydminster originally,
Okay.
and when I think I was 4, I was signed up for piano lessons with a nice lady named Carol Jean Colson. And
Okay.
I used to take piano lessons at her house, and she pretended I practiced, and so did I. And she was very nice about that. She
Hey,
was a
I'm
lot
a
of fun.
private music teacher. That's
Yeah,
yeah. I
I thought you'd
understand.
appreciate that. Um, I mean, I did practice a little bit, but not enough. Well, story of my life.
Yeah.
But she was lots of fun, and I think if she hadn't been as patient as she was, I don't think I would have kept it up.
Hmm.
And then in grade 6, we started band, and I picked the saxophone, and I really liked saxophone. I practiced a little more than piano, so I kind of phased out piano lessons. And my band teacher was Patrick Coleman. He was stern at first, but he warmed up by the time we got to grade 12. He was
Hmm.
kind of a nice guy, but you didn't know that when you were 12. By the time you're
Right.
18, you thought, oh, he's a pretty nice guy. He was pretty good. He used to let me into the school on Saturdays when I'd forget my saxophone. He'd let me in, so that was pretty nice.
Hmm.
I don't know if I do that, but he did. Um, and then in grade 9, I started taking private saxophone lessons with a lady named Barb Lorenz. It was in her house originally, and then she started at Lakeland College. She was the
Okay.
not professor, she was an instructor, I guess you'd call it. And then I'm missing somebody. Anyway, and then I went to university, and my first year was Jan Berry, who was also from Lloyd. She was doing the sabbatical for Dr. Street, who was the saxophone instructor there,
Okay.
or is, I guess.
Where
And
did
he
you
was
go to school? Where you?
U of A in
UVA.
Edmonton.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and he was also very patient because I think he realized before I did that maybe classical saxophone wasn't my passion. I think he said that to me one day. But he
Hmm.
he put up with me, and he was very patient, and I was kind of trying to figure out what I liked and what I didn't like. And
Right.
but I sometimes think of him when I have a difficult student, because I can't say I was difficult, like I didn't argue or anything, but I didn't practice. I didn't do what I was supposed to do at university. I mean, I practiced, but not, the 4 hours a day you're supposed to. It was
Right.
like a few times. And I think he knew that, but I think we got along because he was very nice and patient with me. And then, but I was in the jazz bands, and Tom Dust was the leader of jazz band too. And I sometimes think about him because he was very mellow and easy to get along with, and I sometimes try and do that when I'm teaching too, because he was enthusiastic but not over the top, and patient and pretty good to work with. So yeah,
Okay.
so those are kind of some people that I think of when I think of music education in my life, at least.
Okay.
There were a number of professors at university that were quite good too. In fact, sometimes I watch movies, and music professors and music people are all very snooty and off-putting, and I can't say anyone has ever been that way
Hmm.
in music in my life. They've all been very nice and very patient and quite helpful and enthusiastic. So sometimes I hear people's bad experiences, and then I'm kind of thankful I didn't have them.
Right. I think that can be a thing, like egos get in the way or something. But it sounds like you had a good
Yeah, and I,
experience.
I haven't really experienced that. I mean, people have an ego, like we all have
Yeah.
an
Yeah.
ego, and but I haven't really experienced that so much. So it's kind of nice.
And so you were in like an education program with like the
And I was originally in the performance program, and
okay.
as time went on, I realized maybe that wasn't my thing. Because if I wasn't practicing 4 hours a day, I wasn't going to make it, and I had no
Right.
desire to practice classical saxophone for 4 hours a day. It sounded nice, it just wasn't my
Right.
thing. So I thought about it. I think during most of my second year, I was like, what do I actually want to do? Do I want to do music, or is this my thing? Because I did like playing music with other people, and I liked being in. I was in the concert band, the jazz band, and that was still fun, and I enjoyed it. So I kind of thought, well, I enjoy doing music with people. I enjoy learning about music. So I looked into music education. It seemed to fit.
Okay.
So I transferred into that at the end of my second year. I think it was the end of my second year. Yeah, would have had to be. And so I went, and at the time there's a 5-year program, so instead of 6 years, you did it in 5. So I got my education and music degree in 5. So there's 2 degrees in 5 years. They don't do that anymore, but they did back then.
Right.
And yeah, and mostly I took the same classes and everybody else. I just took a couple more education classes, and that was about it.
Right.
And yeah.
Well, and there were like the classes where you learn about every band instrument, right, and how to play them.
Yeah, that was actually Frank Dunnigan taught one of those classes. I don't know if you know Frank Dunnigan. He was the Edmonton Catholic All City band guy for years, but he taught one of those classes, and Wendy Grasdahl taught brass techniques, and Diane Person, who's a bassoon player, taught woodwind techniques, and Dr. Street actually taught band techniques class as well. So yeah, lots of really knowledgeable people doing those classes. It was quite good. And percussion techniques was one of the symphony percussionists. So it was good.
Nice. Cool. Yeah. And so after that time in university and things, did you get right into teaching? Like, was it
yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I graduated in 2003, and in the fall of 2003, my first job was in Vegreville.
Okay.
Yeah.
Vegreville. Okay. And then eventually did teach in Gwyn, right?
Yes.
Sweet. Yes.
For 1 year, I taught a morning, first 2 periods every day at Gwyn for a year.
And then now you're Wetaskiwin. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I was in Wetaskiwin first, and Gwyn is part of the Wetaskiwin School Division. So,
is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Things you learn.
Yeah.
Okay, and so what kind of, now outside of the education and everything and teaching, what sort of formats have you played in? You mentioned you played the jazz band and concert bands.
Well, saxophone quartet.
Right.
So when I was in high school, the other saxophone students that were with in Lakeland College as well, we had a little saxophone quartet, and we bussed around town a few times, and we played for a garden party, and we thought we were pretty cool.
I mean, your saxophone,
we enjoyed playing
quartet.
Yeah.
You're cool. Totally cool.
Yeah. No, but we had fun. It was good. And then, I mean, in school, I was in the jazz band and the concert band, and every band class. I think there's Marshall. Hey. So it was all, any ensemble I could be in that was available at the time, I kind of did, at least in high school and university. I do regret I was never in a choir. And now I'm like, why was I never in a choir? That would have been good. But it just didn't happen. I don't know why. Maybe I subconsciously had a problem with it. I don't understand.
You have a problem with choir people?
I don't know.
I mean, that's a legitimate thing, though.
Even at university, I could have joined. Like, there was so many choirs I could have just joined, and I never did, and I don't know why. Dumb. Anyway, and so jazz band and concert band, and I never was in the wind ensemble at university. There's too many saxophones auditioning for that one. I was in a short saxophone quartet in university as well, not the actual saxophone quartet, but we played. One of the graduate students wrote a African piece. He'd been to Africa, and he wrote this piece with Africa in this big choir, but it involved a saxophone quartet in the middle. So he asked 4 of us to play this thing, and it was weird. When we played it I think we played it at the Windspear, actually. And it was like the student composer thing, and we set up the saxophone quartet and this choir behind us, and we played this weird piece. But it was interesting. It was fun. Yeah, and just regular, mostly band stuff. Right. Not a lot of other ensembles.
And were all these ensembles and things, was it mostly tenor sax you were playing then?
No, actually, in high school it was mostly Barry, because I was the Barry player in high school. Yeah. But private lessons were on the alto, and let's see, I can't remember. Mostly in university, you play the alto saxophone because most of the classical literature is written for it. Okay. And every year in the jazz band at university, I played a different part.
Oh, seriously?
So first year I played Barry, then I was first alto, then I was in a different band, I was second alto, then in I think my fourth, was it my other year, I was second alto, and then my last year I was tenor. Okay. So I didn't own a tenor until about 10 years ago, actually.
Oh.
So, yeah.
What's your preferred? Do you have a preferred?
I kind of like playing tenor more. I kind of find it easier to play, but maybe that's just the horn I got. I don't know.
And I think when I was trying a few back in the day, like I picked up an alto sax years ago, just because I played through up to like the end of high school, and it's like it felt small. I was like, tenors felt a little nicer, like the
Yeah.
fingering, spacing. I don't know.
Well, I think the thing I noticed is
And it's
because I
mellow.
spent all of high school and university and everything, as well as classical stuff, I'd always be listening to jazz. And as much as Cannonball Adderley and Charlie Parker were great, the sound I think I had in my head was tenor. When I started playing tenor, I was like, oh yeah, this is more of like what I was thinking. And I didn't realize it at the time, which is strange, but
I mean,
there
fair
you go.
enough. I mean, so then let's get into that, like your influences in music. So, what do you listen to, and what like put you into the idea of liking to play saxophone in like a jazz setting and all those things?
Well, in junior high, you could be in the concert band, but there's also jazz band. So it was like, hey, and then it seemed more fun than the concert band. Like there were songs you actually might listen to.
Right. Fair
Um,
enough.
not that you wouldn't listen to concert band music, but it's not toe tapping a lot of the time. So it just seemed like more fun. And then I think it was in grade 7, I got a solo and a song on Barry sax, believe it or not. It was kind of like, hey, this is fun. And, who knows what it sounded like. But to me, it was like, yeah. So it was just kind of fun. But I brought some albums.
Okay.
Things that over the years I've liked and listened to. So everyone is required to listen to this. It's Kind of Blue. So
it's kind of blue. Yeah.
whenever someone says, "Hey, I like jazz. What should I listen to?" It says Kind of Blue. So there it is. And literally every jazz workshop I've ever been to, because I went to jazz camp as a kid in high school. Oh, you got to listen to this first and solo along with this. So got to buy that one. However, this album, Benny Carter, further additions to no, this is just further definitions. There's a song called Body and Soul in here. It's got a great Coleman Hawkins. Actually, the whole song is great, but Coleman Hawkins has a great solo on here. That's a tenor player as well. Benny's playing alto. So this is one of my favorite albums. I think it's a lot of people who like jazz favorite albums, but I like this one. But I do listen to a lot of pop music too, but it's all old. So one of my favorite bands, Canadian, is Sloan. So here's Sloan.
Oh, fair enough.
So it's really good.
And for the kids watching this, these are called records.
Yeah, these are called records.
Those are actually in good
shape. Some of them aren't that old.
Well, I was gonna say those jazz ones look like they're pretty, like the.
Yeah, well, the Kind of Blue one is only. It's only 20 years old because I bought it in the year 2000. They re-released it on vinyl in 2000. They re-released it again.
As long as they didn't remaster it. Oh my gosh, I hate remasters.
The Further Definitions one, though, was actually from a library. That it was on sale at a record store, but it had a card catalog thing in the back, and I don't think anyone ever took it out because it's like in mint condition.
Yeah, nice.
It's good.
Anyhow, go ahead.
Well, we don't need to spend all the time doing this, but here's my Canadian content as well. So you gotta listen to the band as well. So it's a good album. It's a good live album.
Well, yeah, and like if you can watch that movie too, The Last Waltz, it's so good. So good.
And when I play guitar, that's kind of like what I'd like to someday be able to play like, but I don't think it's gonna happen.
Hey, I mean,
the
more you play.
Yeah. I know Steve likes this one, so this one's good.
Yeah, Abbey Road.
That was a lot of high school. This is kind of classical jazz. So this is Mo Kaufman from like the 70s playing Bach and his flute.
Nice.
I've got a few more, but I'll leave them for now. It's not a big deal.
But so you're kind of into, like,
I kind of like everything.
You're a jazz and Canadian rock kind of person, probably.
Yeah, and I have a whole bunch of classical too, but I can't pick just one. I was trying to go through some records and CDs just to see. Like I spent a lot of university listening to Mahler and things and being all brooding, but it doesn't sound like a lot of fun. Still like it, but it's a little serious sometimes. The Bach cello sonatas or concertos sonatas are pretty good. I think I've got a few recordings of those that are nice. Someone's gonna get mad at me because I can't remember which one they are. Rob is like, so I try not to be too. I like this kind of music. So
you try to be open to.
Yeah.
Is there anything you would never listen to? I just need to get this on.
I don't think so. I mean, there's ones that I have trouble finding songs that I like, and maybe it's just because my life experience just doesn't lend itself. Like, I'm not a big like death metal kind of guy,
I'm,
but I've listened to it, and it's a lot of it's technically impressive, and I'm like, wow, that's really neat. But it's not something I'd pop in and just, hey, yeah, that was good.
Rob says
Um,
sweets. So,
Pardon?
Rob,
Yeah,
yeah.
there we go. See, thanks, Rob.
No, and I think there's times when I'll definitely find something technically impressive and I like
Yeah,
it, but I don't want to say I like it. I can appreciate it. And then it's like
yeah,
I just won't be able to listen to that too long without getting angry. So, it's like why I can't listen to jazz fusion. I can't
yeah,
like a 20-minute song that just
yeah. Although there is some, I feel the same way about a lot of jazz fusion, but there's some jazz fusion that is almost poppy, and it's not that I think it's the greatest, but you don't have to think too hard while it's on. Like
right.
put on a little Chuck Mangione, and it's like, oh, it's all right. There's nothing
Well,
wrong with it.
it's like, and again, it's that idea. I can listen to it for a while, but I
No, I
wouldn't
know
want.
what you're saying.
I mean, one of the best examples of Herbie Hancock's Chameleon. Like that's one of the more a lot of people know that one. That thing goes on for a long time, and it has the
Yeah,
main theme, but then it's eventually just going off into space for like 10 minutes, and then it comes back eventually. You're like,
yeah.
oh,
No,
okay,
I think part of that is also, at least for me, growing up, I didn't like in my house. No one listened to a lot of music, so the music I did hear was on the radio, and you kind of get used to the 3 to 5 minute song, and anything longer than that. I mean, I do listen to
right.
songs longer than that, but anything longer than that, if you're not in the right mood, you're kind of like, why is this song so long? It's just your attention span isn't
Well,
there, and that's I don't know
or
if that's a modern
is
day kind
this
of thing
the
or
same song? Like
yeah.
you're just like you have it on the background. You're like, did they? Is the song still going?
Well,
Um,
it's like, and I mean, you can't tell on a CD, but if you open up a record and you look at one side and there's no groove, no band marking for a new song, it's like, oh, this is a long one because it's the whole side. And
right.
that's really common on classical records, not kind of common on jazz records and in pop records. It just doesn't happen. So,
Right. I mean, there were rules back in the day. It's like you have to have your song 2 minutes and 30 seconds or something.
yeah,
That's radio playtime or something. And
yeah,
then, yeah. And so, but that's where even live versus recorded, sometimes they'd go off. Some of these groups would just go off on one song, the same riff over and over and just solo forever. Because you also can't just write lyrics constantly for like a 10-minute
no.
song.
Well, I kind of miss every once in a while there used to be, and there hasn't been for 20 years or more, an instrumental hit. Like there always
Mm,
used to be a hit on the radio or whatever, or you'd hear often that was an instrumental and there's no lyrics. Like it in the 80s, it was usually a movie theme or something like Axel F from Beverly Hills Cop. But even like in the 60s, there's a whole bunch of instrumental theme songs or just instrumental
right.
songs that were hits, like all those surfing songs and all that stuff, like
Right. Yeah.
Miserlou and all those ones. And those don't exist anymore. And it's kind of like a song doesn't have to have lyrics. It's nice if it does, but it's just I don't know. It seems like there's some variety that's missing in popular music these days.
I
Maybe
mean,
that's just me being old.
you could argue that um, most of the lyrics these days and like hip hop and stuff aren't. I wouldn't constitute them as lyrics. They're nonsense and garbage. Like
Now we'll
that.
sound like old men.
It's
Here's us
brutal.
sounding like old men.
It's brutal. Like them comparing like love song lyrics and like
Yeah, I
modern
think.
love songs versus like
Yeah,
like
I
what.
think at the same time though, I have trouble judging a lot of modern music, especially hip hop or rap, because I don't think it was like I know it's not written for guys like me. I am not the target audience. So I don't
Right.
think my opinion necessarily has a lot of weight in that. I mean, kids always say, hey, listen to the song, Mr. Janelle, I'll listen to it. And some of them are kind of neat, but other ones I'm like, I don't get it. But I
Right.
think that's not its problem. It's my deal, not the music's problem. It's just not everything's for me, and that's okay.
Well, and yeah, I mean, I agree with that. It's just there's sometimes maybe it's the music nerd in me, but when you have the same chord progression throughout an entire song,
I think as
and,
someone, yeah, I think as someone who's a trained musician like you or me or anyone is, you're listening to the chord progression, and a lot of the songs have nothing to do with the chord progression. They're about the polyrhythmic beat. Like if you listen to trap music,
yeah,
it's based on a drum machine, and it's like,
yeah,
what interesting beats can we make? The harmonic nature of the song isn't as important as the rhythmic, and
yeah,
that's
yeah.
kind of the opposite of what we've been taught
Well,
formally for years.
what
So it's
was
just a different style.
yeah, I was learning to be stupid in one of my videos. I was going to learn Taylor Swift's Shake It Off, right? That's like bass and drums. That's pretty much it. And it's all about the rhythm. It's not about, like, it's a song to people to dance to. And that song was popular. It's actually one of the only songs I like that Taylor Swift does. So, because it's like,
it's just, I think it's a
catchy.
different, it's just a different way of thinking about music than we're used to. Because, well, like when we're in the big band, every bar is a new chord and there's all these harmonies.
And we're like, you hit these like dissonant chords, like, yeah. And everyone else would be like, this is stupid. Why are we?
Yeah, that's not what is going on right now. It's just a different focus.
And as much as, I like older music, stuff that's 145, I ended up, or 125, whatever you can talk about. I like later Beatles stuff more than I do early stuff, where it's like, you get Sgt. Pepper's and it's like, and
a little more interesting.
Yeah, you get some interesting stuff. I just get, when you can analyze a song in, a minute after listening to like the first bar, it's kind of hard these days.
It's easier to memorize when you're playing it at a bar, though.
Exactly. But Eric Olson and I were talking about this the other day, like, think the Simpsons theme song. That thing's nuts. Like, you don't think about it, but like, that is a nuts song. There's a few of these other songs that are written for cartoons or something. And
no, kids would always ask me for the longest time, can we play the Simpsons? I'm like, well, and I'd show them the music because we had a copy, and they'd be like, I can't play this, Mr. Tindall. I'm like, I know. Because it's just crazy. A little beyond where they usually were when they were asking me. They had like triplet over quarters and all this stuff, and they're in grade 7, and I'm like, no, you can't do that yet. So, and just all these accidentals, and it's people don't realize, but there's a lot of TV themes that are actually more complicated than they appear.
Yeah, versus like some composers, like, and this is where I kind of, and I have talked to like a singer-songwriter, one of those guys who like would go to Nashville or something. They sit in a room with a bunch of people composing like a song that's 3 chords, and you're like, what? Why do you need that many people?
How can we fit Tractor in this verse?
Sorry, music songwriters, but I mean, I'm a person who likes, take some of those chords, substitute things, make them a little more interesting, spice them up a bit.
I have to say something I don't like to listen to, and it's becoming, I mean, it's really common now, is something that's been what I think is overproduced, and whatever that means. But like there are country artists that I still like there's I guess they're more folk country, but like Deep Dark Woods, they're Canadian. I'll listen to them. They're country, and they're pretty good. And I don't think they're overproduced, but there's things on the radio that is like, I don't think this is a person's song. It just sounds like committee and then computer and then so
no, I have a ton of respect for people who can write their own music by themselves, and like, it's more personal to them. So I always find it interesting though, like when
I can't talk because I've tried to write a song and it's awful. It's like it always sounds like something I would hate. I'm like, how did this even come out of me? What's going on? So anyone who can actually sit down and write a song, I'm always like, hey, good job.
Well,
can't do that myself.
I think about it like with talking about instrumental pieces too, like people who could just pick up their instrument, they might not even know how to write a note like back in the day. They just know how to play, and so they'd play something melodic that doesn't need lyrics, and they could just, and you'd have a song out of that. You're like, oh, okay, cool. Like there's songs like Ornithology or whatever, where it's just like, crazy runs forever, and you're like, okay, cool. There's some neat stuff out there. So,
I've been trying to get better at those, but it's slow to learn all my bebop scales. And
I mean,
whenever I go to try and put them in a song, like with a recording or something, I always just sounds like I'm playing scales. I'm like, how do I make this into a song?
I mean, it's arpeggios, it's jumps, it's intervals. This is, okay, now we can get to talking about improvising, because you're somebody who likes to figure that out, right? And I think you're more,
but
I mean, we're going to put this example, like, I'm a technical person too, where it comes to like, here's the scale. How does it fit?
The thing that about improvising, and because I'm not trained as a jazz musician, I think I've said this to many people, that if at the time, if Grant McEwen had offered a degree program, it's a diploma program, I probably should have gone there, because it probably would have been something I enjoyed more, but it didn't. So I don't have any formal like jazz training outside of just being in jazz band at university, and that's different.
Right.
That's more about playing with an ensemble and listening, which is good.
You have your sheet music right there, and it's like,
and I find when I play a solo, like in jazz band or something, the chords are there, but I get about halfway through and I just like, and I end up playing by ear half the time. And I've been trying to get better at reading the changes and knowing what to do. Like I said, I've been working on my bebop scales and my Dorians and all that stuff. But at home, when I practice those, like with a neighbor's old recording or something, I always just sound like I'm playing the scales and arpeggio, which I think is what you're supposed to be doing. So you get really good at that, so you don't have to think about it. But it's that stage right now where it's like I want to do the easy play by ear route because I know how to make it sound good, but I want to get better at it. So it's this middle ground where it's like,
Well, and there's the idea too. This was put across as something when I was fooling around with some bass improv and stuff. But Victor Wooten talks about if you know you're playing the wrong notes and know where to get to the right notes, then you're fine.
Yeah.
Like, you can play the wrong notes. You don't have to hit here to the scale. You just play some garbage and then get back to where you need to go.
Yeah.
But you're playing garbage, sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's not garbage.
It's more, I can make it sound good, but it's not necessarily what's in here.
Yeah.
It's just finding what's comfortable. And I want to get this out of the horn, and that doesn't always happen.
And that's,
if it's an easy blues song, it's generally something I can do. But like I tried to play along the Giant Steps the other day, and I know that's the hard one. But I thought, well, I better see if I can do it, and that didn't happen. And I could make something sound like it was kind of there, but I couldn't. I wasn't working, and so I got a ways to go.
Yeah, and I mean that's just sometimes I find as much as you can sit at home doing it yourself, when you're in a situation where you're playing with others, that adds layers to be like.
Well, there's a bit of pressure, but at the same time, it's a lot more fun. Yeah. And sometimes it's better. Well, it's always better when you're playing with people, but you can somehow you get more creative or something. I don't know what it is.
Well, yeah, and when you get somebody to be like, yeah, like they point at you like, yeah, you did it.
Yeah. And you're like, did I? Oh, good.
Well, and I mean, like with Dennis Roosenick in Big Band or whatever, he'll like yell out stuff sometimes. He's like, yeah, like you can tell he loves what's going on, and you're like, okay, I guess.
Shout out to Dennis as another musical influence because he doesn't know this, but over time, just watching him has helped me not be maybe a little less serious sometimes. Because when you get out of university, it's like I have to do it this way, and this is how you teach it, and here's the curriculum. And he's like, you do this thing, and you play around a little bit, and that's it's good.
And I love that because then it takes what you've learned and it kind of throws some of it out the window too. You're like, oh. Okay, perfect. Like when we were doing the Dixieland before we got shut down, he'd call out, okay, just you play the third of the chord, you play the fifth of the chord. And it was just like,
okay.
Some of the students over there just like, what?
Yeah, that's the funniest thing is watching the students who've never, or at least haven't had Dennis very often, be with Dennis. It's like watching. Who is this man? What's going on?
Oh, so
some of them don't know how to take him.
Oh,
which is kind of fun.
And even me sitting in like when I wasn't even part of the big band, just like coming to sub or whatever, it was just funny just getting to see him do his thing, and he's like whatever, he'd hear something in his head and call it out. But yeah, I think we talked about this a bit before on Thursday when we did the pre-stream interview. But this is Rob too. It'd be kind of cool to have something at the gazebo at some point, talk to Eric Olson and a few other people, and just like play. Even if it isn't for an audience necessarily, but I'd probably advertise it.
Well, that'd be good.
We get a horn section together, give us all the same charts, and then just go. I don't need a chart if I'm playing drums. I just play. It's how I do it. But yeah, and just have a good time. Like
you won't stop playing Beguines. I don't know what's going on.
Oh man, the times that it says at the top of a piece Latin, and everyone's like, "What kind of feel is this Latin?"
Yeah.
Oh, that drives me nuts when it just says Latin. I'm like, are we just playing bossa beats all the time?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, sometimes the instructions are not great.
No, especially drums. Seriously, look at drum.
Yeah.
You've seen some drum charts, and you're like, just tells me to repeat
just
the same thing.
a bunch of slashes, and they're like,
play something.
Like what? No tempo, nothing.
Yeah. Oh, those are the funs with no tempo. How fast is this to go? I don't know. But yeah, like. With Rob, it'd be nice to a few things he mentioned. I'm not gonna go further, but he talks about like create tension and then resolve. So like with anything in music, I think it's important to have. This was gonna be my video: dissonance and consonance. So when soloing and everything, have these really conflicting, stressful parts, and then like hit a note, and everyone just.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes with that, end on a note that is maybe like it's like tritone or something to what's going on, and they just end there and be like, ha, I did it.
To make everyone uncomfortable.
Exactly. It's fun. I mean, Eric and I try to figure that out all the time with songs. I'll call out, Kate, we're ending on this chord, and it's like, what? It's like, okay, sure. We did You Are My Sunshine, and we switched to a minor key, so because it's a sad song. It is a sad song.
Okay.
Well,
another thing I was going to mention with soloing, and I think we've talked about this before, is when you're not sometimes sure what to do, for some reason, I don't know if it's like a wind player thing, the temptation is to play more notes. And it's like, and I'm guilty of this. It's like, just put a little space in there and people don't mind. But it's like, no, we got to fill it with notes.
Yep.
And
that's so important. Hitting those right beats, like hitting some really nicely bop, 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 and like following whatever the band's going on, and shots,
so just those are some things I'm thinking about trying to get better at. Just like attention release, telling a story, not just playing a bunch of notes.
Exactly.
Call and response, those kind of things.
But then you have all these things in your head while you're trying to.
Well, I was like, I can play all these notes. Don't. Nobody wants to hear all those. Because nobody's going to remember. They're going to do. They're going to remember something catchy.
Exactly.
And that, you can play all those notes once in a while, but not all the time.
Well, and sometimes, I mean, you listen to some souls, it can be like one or two notes, and that's it. Like, it isn't going upscale. It's like somebody, for a few measures, they're just sitting on a note. Maybe doing weird vibrato or something with it. And
beginning solo, when I introduced it to the jazz combo or jazz band, whatever I have that year, and I mean, this is something that I did back 20 years ago or 25 years ago. I'm old. It's always like, hey, pick a note. That's your solo note for this time. You play that note, and that's it. So that gets you thinking about, phrasing and timing and stuff instead of just playing as many notes as you can. So,
with some guitar students, all I do is, okay, we're going to go between, like, we learn the pentatonic scale just to get the fingers going. But I'm like, okay, these two notes of the scale, that's all you're playing for the first run through this progression. And then they hear with the chords what it sounds like versus just like it's a scale. So that's all you need sometimes. Yeah. So let's talk about, we're going to shift gears.
Okay.
And I want to talk about, so we're all shut down, right? We're all currently, like, this is major shutdown. We're the COVID, whatever situation going on. So I wanted to get into this because, I mean, this is the reality of music. It seems it's going to be hit pretty hard these days, from a choral perspective, from a band perspective. Like, what?
I think we should all spend the summer writing to our education minister saying, why?
Yeah, I mean,
my own personal opinion, though.
No, I think the interesting thing is, it isn't even just education. It's like all the conflicting, like, I can do this, but I can't do that. That sort of thing.
Yeah, well, the reason I understand the safety concerns, but there seems to be a double standard. Yeah. And I say this maybe not knowing the full situation, so everybody take this with a grain of salt.
Right.
As far as I know, phys ed classes are still good to go in the fall. I was told they're going to do a lot of stuff outside, but they can't do everything outside, like when it's raining or snowing. Right. So they're allowed to run around and huff and puff near each other, but they can't play a saxophone.
Yeah, I mean, and
so
the funny thing,
maybe I'm not a health person, so maybe I'm missing something.
And I mean, from what I'm hearing too, anything can change. We won't even know till like school's going, but we don't know what that looks like.
Yeah. Someone else asked, could a class sing if they're all wearing masks? And I was like, I don't know. I don't know if anyone's asked that.
Try wearing a mask and singing. It's impossible because you're not.
Yeah, I don't think it would work.
You're gonna have children fainting because they have too much carbon dioxide. I mean, that's just how it's gonna work. It's brutal. It's not just even like the breathing thing. You feel anxious wearing a mask. Like you just
can't, oh yeah, for sure.
Because you feel restricted. I think there's definitely. I mean, you're gonna have smaller class sizes for sure if you are doing band.
Well, in our school actually smaller class sizes next year because we used to be a French immersion all-year school, and we're not anymore. They closed down both those programs in Wetaskiwin.
Okay.
So our numbers have actually gone down. Our actual school of elementary kids. Now the band kids are all the same amount, but I actually don't know how many band kids I'm going to have because I don't know. There's probably some band parents, kids who would have been in band who are like, I don't think I'll sign up for that this year. So I honestly don't know what my band numbers are next
I
year.
mean, you might not even. There might be kids who are not even going back to school, might do homeschooling or
Yeah.
virtual schooling. So,
Yeah. So there's a lot of things we don't really know.
this
Yeah.
is the. I mean, this is the standard. What has essentially like we? When did the school get shut down? Like when did?
Well, I had a band clinic on March 7th, which was Friday,
Okay.
a Friday, and then that next week was the week. So I think 10th.
Okay. Like you. Okay.
I
Because
could I
then
could be off by a day or two, but
because
we
we were
had a
supposed to do
band
that
clinic.
Dixieland thing too the next day.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, that was the weekend that the schools were shut down. So
Yep.
the last thing the kids did before we shut down, we had a band clinic where they played all their instruments.
Oh, lovely.
Um, yeah, so
Perfect.
yeah.
And then so, and what have you been like? You were still at the school after that,
I was
or
assigned to help the core teachers with any marking or anything they needed. I
okay,
can't say they needed a lot of help. A couple things here and there. Um, they were pretty self-sufficient. I did a few things for a few people. I spent a lot of time fixing instruments that I could fix. I cleaned things that I hadn't got a chance to get to in the 12 years I'd been there. A lot of filing cabinet drawers were cleaned up. Um, just I fixed the timpani, things like that. Just fixing and maintaining things and going through some old music and just helping out the school where I could. I can't say I was the busiest person in the world.
right?
I would have been busier if students were there, but
Yeah.
I think that's all the teachers. But there was always something to do at the school. Somebody needed help, or the administration needed me to do something, or stuff like that. So
Okay.
we kept busy, but it wasn't.
As you could, yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't teaching like
It
you'd
wasn't
normally.
teaching for you, probably.
Well, yeah, at the end of the day, I wasn't like, oh, I'm kind of tired, because at the end of a teaching day, you're tired because
Yeah.
900 people need your attention all the time. But there were things that I was able to do that I wouldn't normally be able to do in a school day, like
Right.
fix things and look at other things. And I was able to do some more, because I haven't been teaching elementary music very long, I was able to look at some more resources and get a better idea what I could do or what some other things I could do. Because I have all these Orph instruments at the school, and we've looked at them and played them a little bit, but I'm not Orph trained. So I looked through the first Orph Schulwerk manual book.
Okay. And just for what is an Orph?
Carl Orff was a composer.
Yeah.
And he made a system for teaching elementary music. And I am not Orff trained, so I don't actually know all the proper things to do. I've looked into it with as much time as I have. There's a book. But when we say Orff instruments, generally we're talking about the wooden xylophone and metal metallophone. They have specific names, and I always get them and the band names mixed up. So if I'm saying any of them wrong, I apologize to any Orff person who's watching. So there's large xylophones, little xylophones, metallophones, little metallophones, and but there's also movement and singing and all sorts of other stuff involved. But when we think of Orff instruments, that generally it's those ones that people think of because well, they're the most expensive and they take up a lot of room. And they're different.
Like it's like, oh, they take up so much room. Oh.
No, well, when you say these are the Orff instruments and a whole bunch of xylophones, and then there's some other little stuff beside it, you think of the big thing first, right?
Right.
So when people say Orff instruments, they're generally referring to those xylophone, the mallet instruments.
Well, and they're like, would you consider is a xylophone with like the keyboard layout? Is that
different? Well, it's generally just they don't have any accidentals, but they have extra bars you can replace.
Oh, yeah.
So on the side, there'll be 3 bars, and you can replace F with F sharp, or what is it? B with B flat. There's 3. I forget which ones. I think E to E flat. You can change. I think you can play 3 different scales.
Okay.
But like I said, I'm not trained on this, and I just spent a little time looking, and I might get my bars wrong. But it's just to learn the basics, some keyboard basics, and sing along with it. And I'm working on getting better at it, but I don't have any training. Should probably look into that.
I mean, when you need some Orph ensembles, I guess. Yeah.
Well, there's lots of videos online of Orph ensembles at elementary schools that are great. They're like, wow, look at that, that's cool. We're not there. Maybe someday. But the thing I find is some of the kids have a lot of trouble remembering what note to hit. Like I'll tell them, like, this is a grade 2 or something, and okay, your note is C, and then I come back and they're whacking F, just going for it. C, this one, it has C written on it. I mean, they're trying really hard, and then some kids can immediately just start playing with it. So and I used to think when I was a younger teacher that, like, oh, this kid's really good in music class, they must be doing really good in their other classes. No, not always. I've got a few students that were just great in music, and then I'll come to their social studies. Oh, she can't do social studies. She's in her English, and I'm like, what? Like, she's great in music. She remembers everything. She can play the instruments, and it's really surprising because I think most people assume if a student is good, like a musician, they're generally reasonably well at the other classes. And I found that sometimes that's true, but sometimes they're just not, and they're good at music, or maybe it's they have no interest in the other subjects and they like music.
Yeah,
that can be too. On the flip side, I've had kids who I thought maybe weren't doing so well in school because they weren't good at music, but no, they're doing really well in all the other classes. They just don't like music. So you can't assume anything.
oh yeah, I mean, I don't know, and it could even be that, if the parents had their kids exposed to anything musical before.
Yeah, I will say the kids who have taken piano lessons obviously they're further along. They know more about it.
Yeah.
Something else I've noticed is the elementary music curriculum. A lot of the methods say, oh, use these folk songs that the children would already know. Like they assume children will know these songs, and we probably all know them, but they don't.
They don't.
Like they don't know a lot of songs that we like, Old MacDonald and all this stuff. They don't know them at all,
which makes me sad. Really sad. Like, oh my gosh.
I mean, some of them do, but then you get these. I've never heard this song before in my life, and you're like, what?
Yeah, exactly. Like when I was doing my summer workshops and stuff, I had a bunch of kids in the room, and okay, we're doing musical chairs and sing along with this song, and they wouldn't know, like really simple. Mary Had a Little Lamb or something. Like, what?
And I know my wife and I, like when I was at work, she was looking after kids. She had a little book of songs, and she'd sing the songs to the kids. And I just thought maybe that was normal, but obviously it wasn't. So my wife is wonderful. Yay. Thanks, Cordelia. But yeah, some of the kids, I don't think anyone has ever sung to them, or maybe they have, but not very often. Like this music is a new thing.
Right. Like a lot of those, those like folk fairy tale type songs, like traditional things, they're just not as exposed to them, I guess.
Well, I mean, songs change over time, but it's just
weird.
It just
well, it's like you think like Old MacDonald, that's one you sing in like little kids music groups, and everyone, okay, what does the cow say? And you get everyone to and there's a few other ones
and
where
some of the kids know that, but you'd expect more to know it. That's something else I've noticed. I'm not a trained elementary teacher. Secondary, so junior and senior high, and I'm still like I'm much more used to elementary kids than I used to be, but I'm still like the things you have to teach them, you don't realize all the things you have to teach them because you don't realize that people taught this to you. Like, this is how we listen to a piece of music. I mean, it's different when you're in kindergarten versus grade 6, but just the fact that you have to tell them, okay, don't talk right now. Listen to this piece of music.
No,
it's 1 minute long. You can do it. And
I mean, that's the skill, listening, period. I put that, sometimes I tell students, I'll like in their books, I'd write, like, hey, listen to this song. I like write it down, and you can go on YouTube or Spotify and find it, easy peasy, and just listen to it. That's all you got to do. And because then you'll get it in your head, and then you can play it. It's, oh my gosh. Yeah. Oh man. So you actually did a video that we're gonna take a look at. Hopefully it works.
Can I give a disclaimer?
Yeah, totally. We're not gonna look at the whole thing. We'll look at a few.
No, it was just part of it. So I made a video. So half my house is not awake right now, so I'm not gonna play an actual instrument right now. But over my time at the school, my extra time I had, I made some videos for the band students. Every so often I'd send them a video from YouTube saying, hey, don't forget about band. And, I think I sent them the like postmodern jukebox and stuff like that. Yeah. Some kind of neat things. But I also made a few videos. One, I sang and played the guitar for the elementary kids. I sang Cat Came Back. And then The grade eights were going to play the song All Star by Smash Mouth. They were going to play it at their final concerts as their fun piece, but we didn't have a final concert. So I played not all the parts, but I played 12 of the parts and put them together in a video editing program. And the hardest part was using the video editing program. It took a while. Now the tuning is a little off because I didn't listen to each recording while I played. So apologies for the tuning, and I did my best with the timing of the computer, but it's kind of fun. So I hope everybody enjoys it anyway.
Yeah, and I mean those kinds of things are a learning process. So
yeah. Anyway, it's kind of fun. So, I'll share screen and then play.
Yeah, we'll do it that way. And I'm just gonna switch over the overlay.
Okay, we're gonna da-da-da. Da-da. Oh, is that working?
Yeah, it works. Go ahead.
Here we go.
Yeah. It's good. It's good.
I'll fade it out soon. All right, there we go.
Cool.
Stop share.
There we go. Perfect. We're back. Cool. No, that's neat. That's those things are fun.
It was kind of fun.
Yeah. And so, how did you? So you weren't listening to the previous tracks. You were just.
Well, I put on a metronome in my ear, and I just play the song. And I realized when I was all done, I probably should have had one of the instruments too, so I could keep the tuning.
That's better,
actually, but I wasn't. Yeah, I wasn't going to do it all over again because I was like, well, it's close, and yeah, and I didn't know even if I'd had the instruments that the tuning would have worked, because listening to that and playing is different than when, like, it's so different when like a whole group is playing. You can hear and feel everything. It's just weird.
Well, especially like, I mean, people don't realize like you're by yourself playing up one part, and you're like,
yeah,
this is weird.
Yeah, the clarinet part, Travis.
And when you're not listening to anything else other than like click, click, click.
Yeah. Like,
that's
great.
Awesome. That is awesome. Because I usually it's frustrating.
No, what I should have done, I should have played the bass part, but I forget. No, there was a problem. I was actually gonna redo it, but I think the baritone is the only instrument. The baritone trombone comes in on beat 1. Okay. So I would have had to do that part first, but my baritone playing isn't good enough to have a nice steady in tune playing. So I thought I'd do the bass part, but then I couldn't line it up. I just left it because I was like, I've already spent long enough on this. It's good enough.
No, it's if you're just
I thought it went pretty well, but there's some moments where I'm like tuning, there's some clarinet issues and stuff, but it kind of sounds like a grade 8 band, so it's okay.
Rob says, "Rockin', good for you, Marshall. With that context, tuning is pretty good," and really it is. Like, I think.
Well, I thought it went pretty well, but when you play something yourself and you listen back, you're only going to hear the stuff.
Yeah,
that wasn't quite as right as I wanted it to be. So.
All right, so we are like low on time. So if anyone has questions, who's in chat? 'Cause we have a few people. If now's the time to ask them.
I can't see the chat. I can't see any extra chat, so maybe
I have it on the live stream.
Oh, you've got an extra chat. I see.
Yeah. I control the chat. So unless you actually go on like.
The chat.
the live stream itself playing, that might kill your internet though if you have.
Yeah, I'll leave it alone. You can tell me.
But otherwise, thanks for coming and chatting, Marshall.
That was good.
It was good. It was nice to hear things and get a perspective from the woodwind section of the big band and a teacher. And
we should have another stream where we just talk about record albums we like, because that was kind of fun.
I mean, there's a few other people that we could probably bring on for that too. So
yeah.
Well, it's not
the problem is narrowing it down, because the ones I showed you were like, hey, there's 500 other albums that are good too. So there was just,
well, and then I could rant about, I like this album when it wasn't remastered or reprinted.
Oh yeah.
You know, there's those things I'm like, because I got the new Sgt. Pepper's, like where they remastered it. I'm like,
yeah,
this isn't the same.
No,
the CD one's better.
The loudness war is real.
Man.
No, I don't know how those Beatles remasters. I don't know how I felt, because I was like,
weird.
what was wrong with the way they were before?
They're weird. I can't deal with them.
I forget what they did. Didn't they increase the bass and drums?
Well, I mean,
a
lot of the originals were mono too, so they made it so it's like stereo. And
well, they re-released it all in mono too.
Yeah, they did that, but like the one I
edition.
have, I think, is in stereo, and it's like, it's not the same.
No.
Yeah. So that's it for today. Okay, here's a question. Afterward, ask Marshall. Oh, how many lights do you see? I'm supposed to ask you after though.
How many lights do I see?
I don't know. That's what he wants.
It's like a Star Trek quote. There are 4 lights.
But I think we'll be in touch, and Rob too, to chat. Maybe we'll talk to Dennis too and see if we want to do some playing somewhere.
Have you got Dennis to do one of these?
I haven't, but maybe I should.
Because he's got, I swear to God, a week's worth of stories that are great.
Well, and that's Rob. I'll probably, it's a Star Trek reference from Rob.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
But yeah, I'd probably, like with Rob, I have to have another one for sure, because we didn't get into some stuff. But yeah, there's probably a few. I should just bring. There's for some I probably don't even have to be here. I could just be like, go, and I'll make sure the tech works. That's all. But yeah, so that's it for today. Again, check it out. You can check out some previous ones. This one will be up in a little bit, so if people missed it live, they'll get to see it. Next week, I'm taking a break. So I'll be back in a couple weeks with another person for live streaming, and I'll have an announcement on my Facebook page. It'll show up. Yeah, that's the best place to check it out. And if anyone watching this is interested in doing one of these, they can get in touch with me. Also, you can go to my Patreon and subscribe to help this stuff keep going, help improve sound quality and all the tech issues, because a lot of the stuff I just nailed together when the pandemic hit, and I had what I had and I put it together. But I also want to talk about, in this, so I shocked Marshall on Thursday because he didn't know about this, but good friend from Martha's Music, Darwin Reddekopp, had a serious stroke a few weeks ago, and that I derailed our conversation back on Thursday. I was like, I'm so sorry, Marshall, for telling you.
Well, no, it was good to know. I mean, it's really important.
But if you want to help support his family, because his family's from Saskatchewan, they're here taking care of him and helping him out. He's still at the U of A at this point. But if you want to help out, in the description, there's a link to a GoFundMe where you can go and, help pay for his family and help them stay here just during this difficult time for them, because it's going to be a long, uphill battle for him. So, yeah. But anything you want to say before we?
Remember when you're making music to have fun, because why are you doing it if you're not having fun?
I mean, yeah, that's the big thing. So that's from Marshall. Remember to have fun when making music.
Yes.
I'm Steve Hartman, and I'll see you next time. Here we go.
Bye, Steve.
Bye.